the meeting.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board. Father Larry, if you could kindly open the meeting with an opening prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, may everything we do tonight begin with your blessing and continue with your help. May everything we say tonight begin with your love and continue with your grace. May everything we plan tonight begin with your inspiration and continue with your peace. Amen. Our Lady of the Assumption, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Father Larry. Next, we'll have the land acknowledgement. While it is a well-traveled land, we would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi peoples. We are grateful to work, to learn, and to live in this area. Recording of attendance. I believe all trustees are present and are participating electronically. In terms of the agenda, there are no amendments this evening to the agenda circulated, so I'll need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move Demena.
Trustee Demena, thank you. Supported by
Polifroni.
Trustee Polifroni. That the November 23rd, 2021 regular board meeting agenda be approved as distributed. Questions, comments? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest pursuant to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? None are noted. So move on to the presentations. And under 7A, we have the part 2 of the Reengagement learning series, dealing with literacy and numeracy. Madam Director.
Thank you, Chair Valentinas. So as you know, in September, at our September board meeting, we had Reengagement Learning Series Part 1 on special education and mental health. Tonight's session, presentation from Executive Superintendent Melissa Farron, as well as 2 other superintendents, Lofazo and Tuil, and 4 program consultants will present on literacy and numeracy. So at this time, Executive Superintendent Farron, please.
Thank you, Madam Director, and through you, Chair Valentinas. As Director Bernie mentioned last month, we had our part 1 of our plan for you, and that was our tiered approach to supporting the student mental health and well-being and special education needs of our students. This evening, we're happy to provide you with an in-depth look into how we are supporting both our educators and our students in the areas of literacy and numeracy. So we will take you through the cycle of support, beginning with the programs that we offered last year as well as throughout the summer. And you will notice a distinct alignment between our elementary and secondary schools as our student achievement focus really spans from kindergarten through grade 12. So with us this evening are several of our curriculum consultants. We have Michelle Yvonne, Ginny Reichman, Daniela Coppicer, and Robin Grondin. And together they will be presenting alongside Superintendent Tuil and Superintendent Lofazo. So I will now call upon Superintendent Tuil, who oversees the elementary curriculum portfolio.
Thank you, Executive Superintendent Farron. I will begin by reviewing our after-school tutoring and summer learning programs. This past year, our after-school tutoring program offered students the opportunity to strengthen their skills in reading, writing, and mathematics. This program supported a total of 80 students in grades 2 and 3 across 6 targeted schools. The program ran for a 6-week block in April and May. We also had 205 grade 7 and 8 students across the board who participated in the Get Smart After School Numeracy program, which took place in May and again in June. This past summer, our summer learning programs were offered to students in grades 2 and 3 and students in grades 7 and 8. The programs ran for 3 weeks in July and focused on literacy and numeracy. We had a total of 134 grade 2 and 3 students that participated, and a total of 74 grade 7 and 8 students that participated. Our grade 1 students and secondary students were also involved in a summer reading program during the month of July. The program consisted of guided reading, Lexia, as well as wellness activities. These programs supported 215 students. At this time, I would like to call upon our curriculum consultants to speak about the literacy and numeracy support across both our elementary and secondary schools. So Michelle Yvonne, I will pass it on to you.
My Wi-Fi is not being very friendly this evening. Assessment and evaluation. Last year, this support was provided through demonstration of best practices opportunities and pre-recorded instructional videos. This year, we are happy to announce
Executive Superintendent.
Michelle, I'm sorry if I can interject. Michelle, you're absolutely correct. Your Wi-Fi is coming in and out. If I wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind, I will review your 2 slides. I'd just like everyone to get a full sense of the message. So, Stephen, if you could please kind of go back 1 slide. Yeah, perfect.
okay.
I hope you don't mind, Michelle. Okay, if everyone can hear me correctly.
Now, hopefully you can hear me now.
I'm sorry, Michelle. You know what? I'm going to just proceed. Okay. So as Michelle was explaining, last year, Michelle and her colleague, Jenny Breichman, provided job-embedded support for classroom teachers on the balanced approach to literacy. So this support was provided through demonstration of best practices, through professional development sessions, lunch and learns, and some recorded instructional videos. And they provided many digital resources as well to support all the areas of the literacy block. This year, we were happy to announce that we expanded our team to 2 new literacy support teachers. So Michelle Brabant and Veronica Ciparoni. So Michelle and Veronica, they're providing job-embedded intensive guided reading support for students in grade 2 and 3 at targeted schools. And this support is provided to schools in 8-week blocks, and pre and post-assessment data is collected to help guide our instruction and monitor student progress. Also, through the Ministry of Education, we received ReEngagement funds, and our board was able to provide and purchase evidence-based reading assessments. So building upon the success that we experienced with Lexia in our summer reading programs and with our students with special education needs, we purchased Lexia licenses for all students in grades 1, 2, and 3. So Lexia provides a systematic and structured approach to 6 critical areas of reading, including phonological awareness, fluency, and comprehension. So Lexia is integrated seamlessly into our classroom literacy block. And at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Daniela Koppeser.
Hello, my name is Daniela Koppeser, and I'm the curriculum consultant for English, ESL, Social Science, and Indigenous Education. Every secondary school has a dedicated literacy success teacher, or LST, that supports literacy preparations in the school. The LST provides job-embedded literacy support through modeling and explicit teaching of literacy strategies. Professional development is also provided within professional learning communities. Our differentiated instruction and literacy support teacher, Jessica Reno, also provides job-embedded literacy support. Similar to elementary, we have also secured a number of digital literacy resources to engage students and strengthen their reading and writing skills. Culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy, or CRRP, provides a framework for building positive environments, improving student responsibility and success, encouraging parent-school relationships, and building strong community connections. CRRP resources are available in all of our schools. For example, mentor texts featuring diverse characters and lived experiences, and unlearned posters to inspire critical conversations. The objective is for all students to be able to see themselves in the texts that they read and the lessons that they're engaged in. Further, it provides a more inclusive tapestry of Canadian voices and lived experiences for all students. Virtual resources for staff with lesson plans and professional learning opportunities are posted on the Building Equitable Classrooms website that all educators have access to. We have a number of specialized staff who work collaboratively to support our English language learners across our board. The goal of our English as a Second Language programming is to make language and content accessible to English language learners through a variety of listening and speaking, reading and writing activities. This allows the English language learner to hear and see proper demonstration of skills and be exposed to multiple reading experiences daily, including shared, modeled, guided, and independent reading opportunities. In addition to providing academic support, we support our newcomer families by hosting orientation sessions in August and parent engagement sessions throughout the year in order to connect families to settlement services in our community.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Reichman, and I am the Literacy and Numeracy Consultant with the board. Last year, our grade 1 to 6 team consisted of 2 consultants, Michelle Yvonne, myself, and 1 numeracy support teacher, Jody Barron. Our focus was on implementing the new mathematics curriculum. Release time was provided for teachers to take part in a learning series. This was an opportunity to dive deeper into the 2020 mathematics curriculum and look at the key changes. This year, we were able to add 2 more numeracy teachers, Nancy Valancourt and Michelle Diabaldo, to our team. We have also purchased and created many resources to support the 2020 mathematics curriculum. Licenses for Math Up, which is a digital resource, was purchased and provided for all grade 3-4 to grade 8 teachers. This robust resource is fully aligned with the 2020 mathematics curriculum. Job embedded support consists of one of our 5 grade 1 to 6 team members working directly in classrooms with students. This is an opportunity for us to model high impact instructional practices, 3-part math lessons, the use of manipulatives, and our new Math Up resource. Planning sessions include release time for a small group of educators to collaborate. These very structured planning sessions are led by a team member. They give the educators an opportunity to plan a cycle of instruction in mathematics, integrating the use of the digital platform, Math Up, and the High Impact Instructional Practices document.
Good evening. My name is Robin Grondin, and I am the Secondary Math and Science Consultant. Much like the elementary model, Mark Esping, our numeracy support teacher, and I also provide job-embedded support to secondary students and educators. We focus a large portion of our time supporting students and staff in grade 9 and 10 classes. We too model high-impact instructional practices. We are also always on the lookout for the most relevant, practical, and research-based resources available to support our learners and educators. Last spring, the Ministry of Education announced that beginning this school year, the grade 9 math course will be offered as a de-streamed course. This means there is no longer an applied or academic grade 9 math course. Instead, they have created a new curriculum that builds upon the new grade 8 curriculum. Professional development was provided to all grade 9 math teachers in the spring. The session included the rationale on why the curriculum was changing to de-streamed, as well as key changes to the new curriculum. Provincial data from Ontario boards who have been collecting demographic data show that Black, Indigenous, and racialized students, as well as those who come from poverty and students with special education needs, are disproportionately streamed into applied courses. Ontario's vision for de-streaming is to address policies and practices that negatively impact students so that all students are supported to be prepared for their senior program in secondary school. have equity of access to pursue any post-secondary pathway they choose, and to be successful in their future careers. Additional professional development was provided to math teachers this fall. Teachers were able to dive deeper into the curriculum expectations, as well as look at the resources that our team put together. A focus on coding was provided in that session. Next week, all of our learning support service teachers, in collaboration with our special education coordinators, will also be receiving training on how they can continue to support all of our students in this new de-streamed math course. We are happy to promote TVO Mathify. Mathify is a free resource that students can access to receive help with their math homework. This online tutoring is provided by Ontario certified teachers who specialize in teaching mathematics. Their interactive whiteboard, voice and text chat make it easy to upload a math question and figure it out with the support of a math tutor. The tutoring is available to students in grades 6 through 11.
Good evening. In addition to overseeing CRRP initiatives and working with the team in the areas of de-streaming through an equity lens, in essence, unpacking the why, I also work with Paula Chinicolo, who is new to her position as the new Elementary Learning Recovery Strategy teacher. The focus is on grades 7 and 8 students, and the position entails job-embedded support in the areas of literacy and numeracy for teachers and students in targeted schools. The role supports transitioning and pathway planning for students as they approach grade 9. Beginning this last September, students completed diagnostic assessments in math, reading, writing, identifying strengths and areas of need. Paula then collaborates with classroom teachers, administration, LSST, and ESL, and provides support to students most often within the classroom. Part of her role as a recovery teacher includes supporting student well-being, and she has continually reached out to students throughout. And she would like you to know that 99.8% of her students that she's working with are very, very happy to be back in school. So part of its well-being and part of its student achievement, and it's a great addition to our team. Our Indigenous support. The Indigenous education team continues to support teachers, students, and families. Our priority is to support families in the community that have been affected by the pandemic. We know our most vulnerable students and families faced even more barriers over the last 18 months or so. Building and sustaining relationships has been a priority, and through this commitment, we see an increase from 257 self-identified students to 303 students this year, 84 secondary and 219 elementary self-identified Indigenous students. Some of the ways in which our team supports programming is through our Indigenous education contact teachers, and we have one in every one of our schools. We also have tutors supporting Indigenous students in literacy and numeracy from K to 12 through 7 tutors servicing 40 families. And that's 22 at elementary and 18 at secondary. New to our board, the Graduation Coach Program for Black, African, and Caribbean students is a targeted initiative that will aid in the support of Black students along with their families in the overall goal of credit accumulation, graduation, and successful transition into the workforce and/or post-secondary pathway. Sydney Moore is an effective and very productive addition to the Catholic Central community. Although Sydney has begun her work at CCH, and it's just most recent, right after Thanksgiving, she has already influenced initiatives throughout the system. The job of the graduation coach is to address and combat barriers by providing a mentorship program, along with prescribed culturally responsive supports to our Black, African, and Caribbean students.
So as illustrated this evening, our plans to re-engage and support our students really center around knowing our students and their lived experiences, by inspiring them to embrace learning by providing engaging teaching strategies, and empowering them to be the best students possible. So our dedicated educators have really turned a very challenging time into an opportunity to be innovative and one for growth. So we will continue to monitor our students' progress, academic progress, very carefully and closely, and will be responsive to their ever-changing needs. I would like to thank Michelle, Ginny, Daniela, and Robin for being here tonight and sharing our best practices with all of you. And at this time, our team is available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Trustees, do we have any questions with respect to this excellent presentation? Wow, okay.
Mr. Chair, I do have some questions.
Can I,
I'm sorry, who? You're not on my screen. Who have I got here? I'm sorry.
Alexander?
Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks. Excellent presentation. I was just wondering, it seemed that a great many opportunities are available for students who have not been excelling in the past, and maybe that's part of the reason for having a de-streamed curriculum. Are there any opportunities for students, or for some students who could be termed exceptional students, who would like to move ahead? In the past, terms like gifted, etc., have been used. So are there any opportunities for these students to to avail themselves of whatever facilities you have in this, particularly with regards to the math curriculum?
Trustee Alexander, through you, Chair Valentinas, Executive Superintendent Farron, please.
Yes, thank you for the question, Trustee Alexander, and through you, Chair Valentinas. All of our students, whether they are excelling in an area or perhaps struggling in an area, their needs are addressed first and foremost through the classroom teacher. And in the event that a student is identified or as gifted, their goals would be identified within an individual education plan. And then they would be, their needs would be looked after throughout the classroom, throughout the opportunities for teaching. In the particular area of mathematics, we are very blessed in our board to first and foremost have a STEM program that starts in our elementary schools, where we have STEM teachers who once a week go into schools and provide opportunities around coding and problem solving, critical thinking. So there's opportunities there. We also have 3 of our secondary schools have STEM academies, again, that really kind of highlight the type of thinking that kind of is parallel or synonymous with a gifted child. So looking at that critical thinking, the collaboration skills, the problem solving. So I think we're well on our way to meeting the needs of all of our students, and we're always looking to challenge students where they need to be challenged, and we're very lucky through our programs with our STEM academies. Also, we have our IB programs as well at 2 of our high schools. So again, we have lots of programs that can meet the needs of all of our students, and if there was ever a concern that someone wasn't being challenged their full potential, we encourage those conversations to happen at the school level.
Just briefly, one follow-up. Can you elaborate on how the needs of students who may have exceptionalities, how will their needs be looked after within the context of the classroom? I mean, teachers have a lot of children with different needs, but how particularly will the needs of these students who may show some exceptionality, gifted or otherwise, how those needs will be met within the context of a classroom?
Yes, so thank you for the question, for the follow-up question. Within the classroom, the teacher can design activities, whether they're parallel tasks or learning opportunities that would extend their learning, their creativity. So there's always opportunities to extend that learning. Sometimes we also provide those opportunities in the community, whether that's through field trips, enrichment opportunities. We have some wonderful partnerships with the University of Windsor and St. Clair College as well. So again, those are conversations that are had between parents in consultation when we develop those IEPs. But we're always looking for opportunities, again, to take those student interests and their keenness and to build upon that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Alexander. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Trustee Soulier, I have some questions.
Please, Trustee Soulier.
Actually, I have questions on 3 different parts of the presentation. Certainly an excellent presentation that I really appreciate. It's great to see so many good things going on in our schools this year. But getting such a quick overview, I've got a few questions, maybe just some of them around clarification of some aspects. So when we talked about the English as a second language program, I noticed that there were 2 individuals listed who showed up as ambassadors. I'm just wondering if we could have a little bit of information on what those ambassador positions look like and what supports they provide for our English as a second language learners.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Soulier. Through you, Chair Valentinas, Superintendent Tawil, please.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Soulier, and through you, Chair Valentinas. So yes, we do have our board community ambassador, Rama Musharbash Kovaski, and we have Janine Tarar, who is our school community ambassador at Catholic Central. So our ESL community ambassadors really provide support for our newcomer families. They connect them to settlement services in Windsor, Essex to support families. They also work with the programming of students. So they work closely with our school ESL team, our ESL teachers, our ESL school elementary principal, which is Mona Tawil, and myself. So they do play quite an integral role in supporting our newcomer families, not just academically, but with the social aspect of being newcomers and connecting them to services across Windsor, Essex to support them in all aspects.
Thank you. I'm sure that's a very valuable service that we're providing for those families. Thank you for that further information. With regard to the grade 9 de-streaming of math, it was interesting to hear that the focus from the ministry level and for our board is to see that all students are supported, that there's equity of access, and that there's success for our students in their future careers. And I'm just wondering, when we look at that and we look at de-streaming and it's moving to a common curriculum for all of our students in the grade 9 math area, I'm just wondering how our life skills students fit into that program. Again, if I could just have some clarification on how our life skills students will be impacted by de-streaming at the grade 9 level.
Executive Superintendent Farron or Superintendent Bull, please.
Yes, I don't mind answering. Thank you, and thank you for the question, Trustee Soulier, and through you, Chair Valentinas. Our life skills students will still be able to access their programming as it is presently stated, as it currently exists, as well as our students who take advantage of locally developed classrooms or courses. Those will still be available to students next year as well in grade 9.
Okay, so that was an interesting reply. I guess hearing life skills programming referred to as their programming just kind of got my attention a little bit. Just with regard to our special education program and how families feel with regard to transitioning from grade 8 to grade 9. And I'm just putting it out there to administration. It's time maybe that we take a look at grade 9 de-streaming in a more broad perspective and take a serious look at what we can maybe do to help our students with special needs move from elementary to secondary and open up opportunities for them as well to be more included in their classes and to be able to continue with the social activities that they've had at the elementary level, moving through elementary school, to see if we can maybe I don't know, piggyback off of the whole de-streaming of grade 9 and make that a better experience. Maybe it's time that we take a hard look at that as well. So I'm putting it out there tonight for administration to give some thought and some consideration to that, and to see where that's going to take us over the course of this year before we move to a de-streamed grade 9 curriculum. And I did have one other question. Throughout the presentation, it seemed that we got a lot of information about programs and how they were being offered at targeted schools or a particular school. And then we talked about having one recovery teacher for elementary for grade 7 and 9 for the entire system. And you did also mention that there was some diagnostic testing that went on at that grade level. I'm just wondering if really one teacher in that position is adequate for the number of schools that we have across the system, and what the diagnostic testing may have shown, and if we should perhaps be doing a little bit more with regard to that area.
Thank you, Trustee Soulier. Superintendent LaFazo, please.
Thank you, Director Burney, and through you, Chair Valentinas, to Trustee Soulier. Very good question. We looked at our middle schools, particularly at First, and that would be Assumption Middle, Colonel Carter, and Corpus. And we wanted to take a look at particularly the grade 8s going into grade 9, but then also the grade 7s. And so when we talk about diagnostics, we took a look at student data from last year, students that were progressing with difficulty, students that were transitioned to grade 9. And so when Paula Chinicola went into these schools, that's when the diagnostic assessments began. And so we were able to identify, like I said, areas of need in numeracy or mathematics, reading and writing. And from there, she's working with groups of students, but also the teachers there. So some of the best practices that she's using with students, she's also modeling for teachers in the classroom. And it was the preliminary testing or diagnostics in September, but again in November. So we're monitoring, tracking, trying to ensure that we are addressing the needs. Some of it's re-engagement, as we've been talking about throughout this evening, and some of it's just addressing areas of need that students may have had preliminary, even before COVID. So it's making that transition piece a little easier. As far as your second point, we are looking at expanding into other schools. And again, we took a look at data from across the boards, from across the schools. So we took a look at grade 7, grade 8 data. We identified specific schools, the number of students in grade 7s and 8s, and the number of students who at midterm or at progress report time were progressing with difficulty. So we are actually, Director Burney and I met this morning, Executive Superintendent Farron and I have been discussing this. Paula's role, we're looking to expand through a bit of funding that was provided through the Ministry of Education. It's still preliminary right now, but we do acknowledge that it is something that we need to take a look at throughout the system. So when we say targeted, we mean targeted. We're looking at data. We're taking a look at data from last year as far as what it looked like at the end of June, but also we're taking a look at data such as attendance, engagement, anecdotal data, and we're trying to identify where the largest needs are and starting there. So I hope I answered your question, but I'm here for follow-up as well.
Thank you. That was good to hear. I do hope that we will add resources there if it will be of assistance to our grade 7 and 8 students. So thank you for that information. And Mr. Chair, those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Soulier, and thank you for those certainly wonderful answers. I'm always amazed how, to hear the breakdown and how ready and prepared our administration is to answer all those questions. Are there any other questions with respect?
I do have a question, please.
I'm sorry, Trustee
DeMena.
Trustee DeMena, floor is yours.
I do want to thank you for this presentation. It was very, very informative, but I do have a question. Is the de-streaming only happening in grade 9 for this year in the grade 9 math?
Trustee DeMena, yes, it's grade 9 de-streamed math for this year. The Ministry of Education just announced de-streamed grade 9 science for next year. That'll be an open course, just like the grade 9 math, as well as English, geography, and French. To look at the curriculum at the academic level. So they're moving towards a de-streamed core content next year for our grade 8s going into grade 9. So that was just announced.
Thank you for that. I got a follow-up. Is there going to be any de-streaming in the STEM program?
Trustee Demena and Chair Valentina. So this year we had our de-streaming courses from the perspective of where they could go with the math. So looking at from a level of what we're able to do IB as well as STEM, they moved forward with the actual content of de-streamed math, but they are moving forward perhaps at a pace that's a little quicker, but they are looking at the same content as you would have in other grade 9 classes. The STEM cohorts may travel together from their grade 9 math to grade 9 science to grade 9 geography, but it's the same grade 9 math de-stream content.
Okay, thank you for that. Also, I do want to comment, it's very nice to be able to put a face to a name when it comes to the consultants. I'm very happy to be able to maybe recognize you when we do go back to the board office in person and say hello.
Thank you, Trustee Demena. Very well said. Any further questions of the presenters? Trustee Alexander, please.
Just one last brief question. I'm just wondering if the PALS program is still in existence within the context of this new de-streamed curriculum.
Trustee Alexander, through you, Chair Valentina's Superintendent Farron, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Director, and to you, Trustee Alexander, through Chair Valentinas. Our PALS program is available and taught at kindergarten through grade 3. So there's no change. We're still instructing our PALS programs in our kindergarten through grade 3 classrooms, so that there will be no change.
So there's no thought of expanding the program beyond grade 3. It just ends basically at grade 3. Is that it?
That is correct. It's till grade 3.
No thoughts of expanding the program. I'm a particular fan of the PALS program. I think it's probably one of the most effective programs we have in our system. I'm just curious, why is it resources that prohibits us from expanding it beyond the grade 3 level, or is it just doesn't seem to be useful?
Yes, Trustee Alexander, the PALS program really targets those learning to read strategies. So it looks at decoding, it looks at word identification, letter sound fluency, and comprehension. So it is a program that we use with our primary students. However, for those students in our junior grades, perhaps who are still acquiring those skills, we will use a remedial PALS program with those students to ensure that the mastery is there.
Just one last question. So the PALS program is restricted to reading and literacy, and it doesn't extend beyond that, say, to the math arena. It's just basically reading and things along those lines. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Our PALS program is it's an evidence-based reading program.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Alexander. Any other questions from the trustees?
I have a few, Bouchard.
Please, thank you, Trustee Bouchard.
Yes, I also would like to thank you for the presentation. That was wonderful. Are we able to ask for the presentation? Are we able to get a copy of it? Because I found myself scribbling furiously, as well as last time with the part 1 of it. I've got little notes, but I'm sure that I missed things. So just for our own records, are we able to get a copy of those slides? Is that a possibility?
Trustee Bouchard, through you, Chair Valentinas, we'll have Beth send that out to you tomorrow.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then I do have a couple other questions, if you don't mind. The Lexia licenses. I've been hearing wonderful things about Lexia from different students, different parents that are hearing from their students. Is this something that needs to be renewed yearly? Is this a cost that the board has already got that budgeted for, or I'm just wondering how that works?
Executive Superintendent Farron, please.
Yes, thank you for the question, Trustee Bouchard. We were very fortunate to be provided funding, the re-engagement funds in particular, from the Ministry of Education that allowed us to purchase the license for our grades 1 through 3 students. So we will closely look at the progress that students are making and its effectiveness, but this would be something that we would have to budget for moving forward, as this was limited funding for this year.
Okay. And a follow-up to that is that the same thing stands with Math Up. Is that as well?
No, Math Up actually was purchased. We earmarked funds to purchase Math Up, so that those licenses will continue yearly.
Okay, wonderful. And then I had one further question regarding the graduation coach at Catholic Central. Is that a pilot program right now? Is that going to expand out to other schools, or how is that going to work?
Superintendent Lofaso, please.
Thank you, Director Burney, through you, Chair Valentinas, to Trustee Bouchard. We have the graduation coach at Catholic Central. We have a 4-year commitment for that position. Cindy Moore, as I said, is the coach at Catholic Central, but she is influencing system initiatives. So although she's working directly with students there, I'll give you an example. We had a University of Windsor presentation for our students. She was able to organize, collaborate with other schools so that all our students who identified could be part of that presentation. So she's been a great resource for us. So although she's working with specific students and staff at Catholic Central, she's situated right in the guidance department. She's also creating opportunities, or at least exploring and uncovering and collaborating, so that all our students across the system at least know of these opportunities. So like I said, she hasn't been with us long, but she's made quite an impact.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. She sounds like an amazing resource. So I'm glad that we have her. Okay, that was it for me for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bouchard. Any other trustees have questions? Just to follow up, a quick one on the funding. This was some extensive programming when you look at the presentation we just heard and the teams that were involved, etc. Do we have any idea whether the ministry will continue the additional funding to continue these programs moving forward?
Chair Valentinas, through you, Executive Superintendent King, please. It could be perhaps the funding that's continuing till June, or for moving forward.
Thank you, Director Burney. We have the funds for this year. That's all that we know. So for the fiscal year ends in August.
Thank you. Well, let's be hopeful. Well, if there are no other questions, let me say excellent and informative presentation by a wonderful, talented and dedicated team. So thank you, Executive Superintendent Farron, Superintendents Tawil and Lofaso, Consultants Michelle Ivan, Jenny Reichman, Daniela Kopiser, and Robin Grondin. Thank you for coming this evening and enlightening us as to what goes on, certainly, beyond the actual classrooms itself. So thank you. Moving on the agenda now, we'll move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is delegations. There are none. So we will move to the action items. And 9A is the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 26, 2021. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Trustee
I move.
Russell, support by Trustee Demena. That the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 26, 2021 be adopted as distributed. Questions, comments? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you. 9B are items from the Committee of the Whole Board in camera meeting of November 9th, 2021. Vice Chair Soulier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Windsor-Essex Catholic District School Board convened a Committee of the Whole Board in camera meeting on November 9th, 2021, pursuant to the Education Act, Section 207, to consider specific personnel, pupil security of the property of the board, real property, labor relations, potential litigation, and other matters permitted or required to be kept Private and confidential under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. There were no action items from the November 9th, 2021 in-camera meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Soulier. Moving on to communications. In terms of 10A1 is the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association memorandum regarding AGM resolutions. I'll need a mover and a seconder.
I'll move, Bouchard.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Bouchard, supported by
Trustee Heath.
Trustee Heath. Thank you. That the board receive as information the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association memorandum dated October 19th, 2021 regarding the 2022 AGM resolutions. So if you, again, I'll refer you back to that. The resolutions are explained, the different categories, the process. So I think the deadline is in January if we are going to move on any specific resolutions from there on. Questions, comments? All in favor? It's been moved, been supported. Thank you. Next, 10B is the 2021 year-end budget variance report. I'll need a mover and a seconder to hear that. Moved by Trustee Master-Maté, supported by Trustee
Soulier.
Thank you, Trustee Soulier. That the 2020-2021 year-end financial variance report be received as information. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Let's hear it. Thank you, Madam Director.
No. At this time, we'll ask Executive Superintendent King.
Thank you, Director Burney. The report before you presents for information the 2020-21 year-end budget variance report, and it does follow a format that's similar to the quarterly variance reports provided throughout the year. It considers 4 key related components, which include enrollment, staffing, revenues, and expenses. So as you can see in the report, actual enrollment at year end resulted in 156 more pupils than what was projected in the 2020-21 budget estimates. And consistent with a slightly higher enrollment as well, as COVID-19 related staffing needs, the board had 59 more FTE in the year-end establishment than that was provided for in the budget. Our year-end revenues were $4.2 million higher than budget, and that was mainly due to increased priority and partnership funding revenues. So those are those special purpose grants, most of which was related to the safe return to class in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Year-end expenses were $1.1 million lower than budget, mainly due to the fact that the contingency reserve was removed as the fiscal year is now over. And so the net result of that is an in-year surplus of $3.6 million at year-end, which is $3.6 million better than the balance position that was reflected in the budget. Now, last year we had an adjusted closing accumulated surplus of $22.5 million. So when you add this year's $3.6 million surplus to that, the closing accumulated surplus that remains at the end of the 2020-21 fiscal year is $26.1 million. We have a chart in the report that shows that figure for you, but it's important to note that there are commitments against that $26.1 million accumulated surplus for a variety of purposes. We've outlined them in the report. It's on the bottom of page 22 of your agenda package. When these restrictions or commitments are considered, there remains approximately $11.6 million of the accumulated surplus that is unrestricted and available to offset future operations. Now, just to spend a little bit of time on accumulated surplus, boards can use these uncommitted funds in their accumulated surplus as part of balancing revenues and expenditures when they're building their budgets. However, we wouldn't be permitted to use the entire $11.6 million in 1 year, since the ministry only allows boards to access an amount that equals the lesser of their accumulated surplus for the previous year, or 1% of their operating revenue in a traditional year. In this past couple of years with COVID, they've allowed us to access 2%, but traditionally you can access 1% of your operating revenue from your accumulated surplus. So 1% for us is $2.4 million. So that is what we could access of the 11.6 million for operations at budget development time. And you've seen us use that strategy in the past few years, where we've used accumulated surplus in addition to current year revenues to balance the budget. We always approach this cautiously, however, since it's always best to try not to rely on prior year surpluses so we can have a cushion available for unforeseen events that may arise in a year. And an example of this is we have year-end accruals related to the actuary's valuation of our employee future benefit obligations. This can impact the board's financial positions by millions of dollars due to changes in forecast interest rates. So this is something that can and has happened in the past. It's completely outside of our control. So in these instances, it's good to have some accumulated surplus available to fund this pressure should it occur. Another thing that we keep our eye on with respect to the accumulated surplus is the fact that the ministry considers that in their assessment of boards' financial health. So specifically, when they assess financial health, they look at the number of years remaining before your accumulated surplus could be depleted. They also look at the ending accumulated surplus as a percentage of the operating allocation. And what happens is when they do this assessment of the board's health, if the accumulated surplus gets too low, the board considers, or the ministry considers you higher risk, and they begin more frequent discussions with the board. They monitor, they increase their monitoring of the board, they increase the reporting requirements as well. So we always keep that in mind when we're looking at the accumulated surplus. However, despite these cautions, we can use the accumulated surplus to a limited extent in operations. We can also use it on certain capital projects when either the capital project is approved by the ministry or for other smaller projects that don't require ministry approval. And we can also use accumulated surplus to fund the board's capital deficits, which we are doing for the admin capital deficit. With respect to the balance of the report, it does contain detailed explanations of expenditure variances, which I won't go over in detail at this time, but we're available. Senior Manager Sue Swatoshik is joining us as well. We're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Executive Superintendent King. I'm glad we got the explanation on the surplus, because that's a question that comes up, and I know that trustees certainly are interested in that. So we do have some questions here, so we'll start with Trustee Master-Matte.
Just a brief question. You referenced admin capital deficit. Please expand.
So boards have a capital deficit when they have spent on capital projects that are not funded by the Ministry of Education. So that can happen for a pupil place, so it can happen to a school, or it also can happen to an admin facility, for us specifically the Catholic Education Center. So we do have a capital deficit, most boards do, and part of it is pupil place related, and part of it is board admin related.
Can you help me with some kind of a number along the way?
Absolutely.
How much? Where are we at?
Absolutely. Through you, Chair Valentinus, to Trustee Master-Matte. So at the end of the 2020-21 fiscal year, our total capital deficit was $9.5 million. Of that, 2.5 is related to an admin deficit. The admin deficit went up slightly from what we had just this past year because we had to do some major roof replacements at the Catholic Education Center board office, and the Ministry of Education does not provide funding for capital projects for admin. So it's unsupported essentially.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that somewhere along the way, decisions were made that overspent. We're looking at still a debt of 2.5 mil on the administration building. The other 6.5 mil was also overspent by some members involved. and we're still paying for those over expenditures. By that, I'm saying money that was never promised by the ministry. Other people chose to spend it anyways. Am I overstating the case, or am I oversimplifying the case?
Essentially, you were correct in your interpretation. It was very dated. So this isn't anything new, but you are correct. It's spending on capital without ministry funds.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Trustee Master Matei. Just to follow up on that, was that number 14 million at one time, or even higher?
It does. Yeah, it goes down by about $720,000 every year. So it has been in previous years at that level.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Trustees, any other questions regarding the variance report as presented?
We are in, from a risk perspective, we are in a healthy position from the ministry's perspective. They are not seeking additional reports or monitoring or discussions with us.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for putting that so directly. Just with regard to the financial aspect and the surpluses that we have, it's always a good thing to see a positive number. I suppose for a school board, we should probably be looking to try and always hit that zero, that we have no surplus and no deficit. And that would likely be reflected as having spent the money we've received from the ministry well to support all of our students in our system in that given year. So just, I guess, looking beyond the positive number and the amount of surplus, and the fact that we're in a position where we can use 2% of our surplus or 2% of our operating expenses from our surplus to be able to support our students. I'm just looking at the reality of the fact that some of this money was in part because we did not have students in school full-time last year, where they were learning virtually. So we did save some money with regard to some of our staffing areas. But in hindsight, we also know that students didn't necessarily get everything that they would have benefited from had they been in a building in person learning. So just looking at our presentations thus far this year, where we focused on what we're doing to try and help students now that we're back in school, and having the financial ability to actually be able to look at this and say, okay, now that we're here, and now how do we use this money to help our kids? And we know from our last presentation where we've seen a reallocation of special support services. So we have kids who are still waiting to be assessed with regard to special education needs. And maybe they've been waiting since before the pandemic even started. And then add new students that have come into the system over the last 2 years. So we have that need. And we also have the need just I mean, last year we had a special education or special services department where a number of our staff were reallocated to help support mental health needs for our students. And this year they've gone back to doing the assessment part. So we've cut that mental health resource by some number of staff. So we need to support those students in that way as well. It just seems to me that we have so many needs, and we have a ministry that's saying we can access our surpluses. Can we not make a conscious effort to really look at what we have learned about our students since we've come back in September, and how we can support them to help them move forward, and to help our system move forward, and to find new supports for our students who are needing them, and to just really take a hard look at some of the programs we have and whether they're going to continue to be suitable, whether those are our special education with our inclusive model and what that looks like across the students learning from JK to grade 12. What we have some great things going on, like the addition of these coaches, these graduation coaches. How awesome is that? But how many students do we have that maybe don't fall into the category where those individuals would be helping? But wouldn't it be something if there was like a success coach somewhere who could just, I don't know, reach out and to be able to help families that maybe need to find resources in the community and don't know how? What about that? Like, can we look at some of the things that we've got going on? Some of it's so incredibly creative. It's so exciting to see those things coming into our system. Maybe we need to take a look, and we need to look at them a little broader and say, yeah, this is really great, but how does a parent access funding to have their child assessed on their own? What other sources are out there? And how many parents would benefit from a person in our system who would be able to say to them, let me help you because I know what's out in the community and I can help you. So I don't know. I feel like we need to take a look. And I know that I keep harping on it. I'm starting to feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record, and I'm going to find a way to bring it up every meeting. And I am. I'll make that commitment right now. I'm going to find a way to bring it up repeatedly. But we need to do something, and we need to do it now. Our teachers have been with our kids for 3 months. They have a sense of what their students need. The students know what they need. They know what they're lacking, and their parents know. Is there a way for us to reach out and to try and survey and find out what we could do to be able to better support kids and to just make use of the funds that are there for our kids so that they have a better opportunity to learn? That's what the money is there for. I do thank administration. I know that this was a very difficult time, and I know that you had no idea where we were going to end up financially at the end of the school year. I'm sure it was the case for every business and every family and every government agency because we're living through an unknown. So I do thank each of you for your efforts, and I'm really pleased that we're in this position because now we can do something. And we spent so many years as a board where we didn't have that opportunity. We could have asked the question, but we never had the resources to be able to respond to what the answer would have been. So I think we're in a good place, and I'm just putting that out there for administration. And hopefully we can continue this dialogue and see where it takes us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Soulier. I'm not sure that was a question. There was a lot of questions in there, and certainly some very, very valuable commentary and input. In terms of process, I think, when do we approve the budget that any adjustment would be made? Because I think what Trustee Soulier is basically saying is that there's an opportunity perhaps to increase spending on certain initiatives in certain areas, which can, surely assist those students that perhaps are facing, additional challenges or increased challenges. So is it fair, and again, to expect administration to perhaps look at this and come back and say, this is the amount of surplus we think you can possibly use. I know we can, but that you would feel comfortable that would still, keep us in good financial state, because there was a big smile on Trustee Mestre-Matei's face and all of us when you said we are in a healthy situation and this is a positive. So I think, it would be, appropriate for maybe administration to come back and say, here's a couple of alternatives or suggestions that we would support or we would recommend. And I'll leave it at that, but Trustee Mestre-Matei has his hand up, so we're going to acknowledge him.
Yeah, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but the reality is that's why we have administration. That's why we have in-camera meetings. That's why all these great ideas can be discussed at a future date with the intent of having input as to some of the areas to explore, to spend a few more dollars. Let's not become Santa in this situation. The reality is the reason we are where we are is because wisely over the years, money's been put aside. So as much as I want to agree with Madam Sillier, the reality is I think her message is out there, and I think that discussion can continue. But we aren't going to resolve or move in any direction this evening on that matter. And I also don't want to spend a lot of money because you don't know what tomorrow brings. That's why we have the nest egg we have. Thank you.
Chair,
Trustee Mestre-Matei.
Chair Valentinas, just to acknowledge Trustee Sulier's detailed comments. As a senior team, we will go back to revisit some of these items with our business department. We do have to remember, where we were last spring to where we are now in this report is one thing to acknowledge. And then just knowing that last week, at the end of the week, November 19th is when we heard from the Ministry of Education regarding our funding for this year. So we only received half of the year funding until basically now, when we find out in the perspective of the remaining funding for the rest of the year. We just found out about that last week. So we just have to keep in context, what do we know and what can we do to move forward, and what does that look like from a surplus perspective versus what are the funding mechanisms we have in place now. And as Executive Superintendent King mentioned, it's one thing to in the sense of trying to prepare or plan from now till June, when we only receive the other half of this year's funding as of last week. So we're in different times as far as what's coming out from the Ministry of Education. And as you said it, everyone's working very diligently on what's best for our students and our staff. So we'll continue to plug away in that fashion, and we'll continue to revisit that surplus conversation and moving forward in that direction.
Thank you, Madam Director. Any further comments? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, that we now go to the committee reports, and 11A is the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee minutes of May 26th. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that.
I move.
Moved Trustee DeMena, supported by
Trustee DiTomaso.
Trustee DiTomaso, that the board receive as information the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee minutes of May 26, 2021 meeting. All in favor? Questions, comments? Anyone opposed? And that carries. Next, we have the French Immersion Advisory Committee minutes of May 12th. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by
I move Heath.
Trustee Heath, supported by Trustee Polifroni, that the board receives information the French Immersion Advisory Committee minutes of the May 12th, 2021 meeting. Questions, comments? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? And that carries. Moving on, we have the report from the Parent Involvement Committee Executive Minutes of June 10th, 2021. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Trustee Di Tommaso, supported by Trustee Bouchard, that the board receives information, the Parent Involvement Committee Executive Minutes of June 10th, 2021 meeting. Questions or comments? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? And that carries. Next, we have the Special Education Advisory Committee minutes of September 16th, 2021. Moved by
DeMena.
Trustee DeMena, supported by
Trustee
Heath, that the board receives information, the Special Education Advisory Committee minutes of September 16th, 2021. Questions or comments? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? And that carries. That takes care of the committee reports. There is no unfinished business. Under new business, we have 13A, which is the annual honoraria review. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that.
I move, Heath.
Trustee Heath moves that we get paid. Okay, support?
Trustee Di Tommaso.
Trustee Di Tommaso, that the board approval be given to establish honoraria for board members for the period from December 1st, 2021 to November 14th, 2022 in the amounts of $9,842.36 for trustees, $12,849.24 for vice chair, and $15,856.11 for the chair. And that the board approve maintaining the annual honorarium for the board chaplain at the current level of $4,000. Questions or comments? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Next, we have the report for the 2020-2021 fiscal year-end financial statements. I need a mover and a seconder for that.
Moved, Polifroni.
Trustee Alexander, support by Trustee Polifroni. That the board approve the audited 2020-2021 fiscal year-end financial statements. Questions, comments? Is there any administration have any comments? Are there any questions with respect to the financial statements as presented? Trustees, no questions? Okay, it's been moved, it's been supported. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Are there any notices of motion? There are no notices of motion. Remarks and announcements. This past weekend, we had a tragic accident which took the lives of 2 of our students. The families of those students, their friends, their fellow students, the school community, the board's community is in mourning. We offer our sincerest condolences to the families and our prayers at this very difficult time. On Monday, Trustee Master Matei, myself, the director, and certainly many numerous school officials were able to attend a beautiful and heartfelt prayer service which honored the 2 students who passed away. Although many of us have never met these 2 young men, the prayer service and the speakers at that service allowed us into a glimpse of who they were and to reflect on the loss of their lives. So we certainly thank the principal, Amy Lofaso, the chief organizer, Jeff Jenner, and their team for putting that beautiful prayer service together. Thank you. We will be entering the final year of the 4-year term beginning in December. And so we have an organizational meeting which elects the chair and vice chair. The organizational meeting is scheduled for November 30th next week at 7 p.m. Madam Director, remarks and announcements.
Thank you, Chair Valentinus. As Chair Valentinus mentioned, we continue to keep our Catholic Central School community, staff, students, and their families in our prayers, asking for strength, hope, and comfort during this difficult time. At this time, we're going to look back at our successes. So in keeping with our vision of building communities of faith, hope, and service, we've been focusing on our efforts this year on building relationships with our students, our staff, and communities since coming back to in-person learning in our schools. Every month, we have been asking our schools to submit photos and video clips so that you, our trustees, and our community can see examples of how we are building these relationships. Some highlights from this month's video include Holy Name Elementary students writing cards of gratitude to our first responders, friends from community living who have been employed as temporary cleaners in our schools, vaccinated students getting back into extracurricular activities like sports, some of which actually resumed yesterday. Assumptions Whodunit mystery event, many Remembrance Day tributes that our schools held to honor our veterans, our bullying prevention awareness activities that are occurring this week, the recent graduation ceremony held at St. Mike's Adult School, Our Lady of Annunciation's expression of gratitude to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul and Mucci Farms for their generous donations, St. Andre's Where's Waldo in the Classroom event, Holy Name Elementary efforts to convince children to walk or bike safely to school, and St. Teresa of Calcutta's administrative leaders lifting spirits throughout the school. At this time, Communications Coordinator Stephen Fields is going to show the highlights of this video.
Bullying prevention matters the most because a lot of our bullying goes unnoticed and a lot of students don't mention it to staff or even family members or even their friends. So I think if we have a week dedicated to helping prevent bullying, it can sort of inspire those people to either speak up or just like shine a light on bullying altogether.
Hello, fellow graduates, St. Michael staff, and family and friends. It is an honor to represent the 2021 St. Michael's graduation class on this joyous occasion.
I hope you enjoyed this month's presentation. Looking ahead, virtual grade 8 open houses continue. These evenings are great opportunities for senior elementary students to visit our high schools and find out more details of our specialized programs, extracurricular activities, and school in general. The dates are posted on the board's website under each high school. Sunday, November 28th is the first Sunday of Advent, a time of spiritual reflection and anticipation. Thank you to principals, teachers, and staff who through activities, prayer, and celebrations prepare our students during this joyous occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Director, and thank you to everyone involved in putting that beautiful video together. It's amazing, even though those students were wearing masks, their enthusiasm, their love of life, their love of learning just shone through. It came through. You could see the twinkle in their eyes. So thank you very, very much. Board Chaplain, Father Larry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There was part of that presentation was remembering, looking back, and then the director just said, we're looking forward. And that's kind of what I'd like to just talk about a little bit now briefly about Advent again. Here's a quote from St. James. Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. The farmer waits for the precious crop from the earth, being patient with it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also must be patient. So patient is not a virtue that we're very comfortable. Well, we're very good at practicing, let's put it that way. We live in a culture where the practice of patience is not honored too much. We want to hurry. We want to get there fast. I think we can learn much from the example of Mary during this Advent season. She's a wonderful Advent person, isn't she? John the Baptist, Mary, who waited patiently through the months of her pregnancy for the arrival of her son, our Savior. So hopefully we'll all take time to slow down a bit. And it's a hectic time of year in this season, I know. But take time to slow, to sit, to reflect, to listen, and to be patient. Patient with each other, especially those of you who live in family situations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Father Larry. Remarks and questions by trustees. Trustee Alexander.
Thank you. This evening, I think we were all treated to some pretty impressive monologues focusing on this surplus that the board has accumulated. I think before we run ahead and try to find ways of spending the board's money, it would be well to adopt a very conservative approach. For those of us who were on the board several years ago, we came from a very dark place until now a situation where we do have a surplus. So I think we should be very cautious about trying to find ways and means of, some of them might be needed, but nevertheless, I think caution should be the approach that we should adopt, particularly when we are thinking of major financial investments. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Alexander. Trustee Bouchard.
Yeah, I have a question. Just asking if there's any news that can be shared. I know that this is brand new, the vaccination for the 5 to 11-year-olds, but I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be shared. Is there any chatter about local vaccination clinics at the school levels or within like a cluster of school communities or whatnot? Because right now being offered out at Devonshire Mall from 8:15 or 8 a.m. to 3:15 is not very conducive to a lot of families. There's going to be a lot of access limitations. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be shared yet, or if that's in the works to do something a little more local.
Superintendent Bull, please.
Thank you, Madam Director, and through you, Mr. Chair, to Trustee Bouchard. Thank you, Trustee Bouchard, for the question. I can share that we were very excited to hear the news about the vaccinations being offered to this population. This is very welcoming news for our parents. And yes, you did mention the vaccination clinic at Devonshire Mall. We are currently in discussions with the health unit. We have standing meetings regarding this, but we will definitely, if we are offering clinics in our schools, we will definitely be providing advance notice about these clinics. And also just keeping in mind that I know parents are quite concerned about parental consent. Parental consent will be necessary for the grade 5 to 11 or age 5 to 11 population. So even though we are still planning the clinics, parents can access the Devonshire Mall at this point. They can also access their healthcare providers. And I'm sure over the next few days, we're going to see multiple clinics popping up here and there, but we will definitely keep you informed well ahead of time of what we will be doing in our board to support this exciting endeavor.
Okay, thank you. I know it's very early days. I just had to get that question out there. So thank you. Yeah, it is very exciting times. I booked my 11-year-old, so it'll be the last one of our group. So it's good. It's good news.
Thank you, Trustee Bouchard. Today's a conference call that the chairs have on a weekly basis with the minister. This issue also came up, and the minister, encouraged school boards to enter into discussions with their local health units to sort of facilitate the expansion of these clinics, whether that includes the role that schools can play. So I know our administration and Superintendent Bull, are on that already, and we'll certainly continue to pursue that. But thank you. Trustee Master-Mathé.
Just a couple of comments. I'd like to congratulate administration as they continue with their presentation today, Reengagement Learning Series. I look forward to many more of these kind of enlightenment for us as a board and for the public at large. I also want to congratulate Stephen Fields for his presentation this evening, which I find it heartwarming just to see, as you said, Mr. Valentinas, the smiling faces through those masks. They look forward to being in person in school, and I think we enjoy seeing the smiles on their faces. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Master-Mathé. Trustee Polifroni.
I want to say my heart and prayer goes out to all the Catholic Central School community and their families at this difficult time. Really, my prayers are with you.
Thank you, Trustee Polifroni. Trustee Heath.
I too want to say thank you for the wonderful presentations tonight. Trustee Bouchard took the words out of my mouth that I would like to see these presentations in a hard copy as well. I find it a lot to comprehend at once, and so it's hard to comment or ask questions when it's all coming rapid fire like that. But thank you again to administration for those presentations tonight. And I continue to go to my school council meetings, and I've told them all that it's such a good thing that we can at least do that, because as well, I miss the kids. I miss getting in and meeting the staff and principals that I haven't even met yet. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge. So, but at least we can do that. I can't wait for the day again. I say it every time that we can get back in the school, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Trustee Heath. Trustee DeMena.
Nothing this evening, thanks.
Thank you, Trustee DeMena. Trustee DiTomaso.
Thank you. I wanted to thank administration for the great work they've done tonight and continue to do. I'm really amazed. And I want to thank Stephen Fields for the great production and all the schools that are all involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee DiTomaso. Vice Chair Soulier.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Soulier. Student Trustee Jada Malat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start and thank Mr. Fields for the presentation about what's going on in our schools, and I especially can attest to the sports part. I am the captain of the St. Joe's girls hockey team, so I know what it feels like to be excited about having sports in our schools again. It just changes what it's like to be at school, you know? It brings our school together, not just the players on the team. It brings the entire school together and really brings together a sense of school spirit. So I have the first half of our Student Senate report. Gina will be giving the second half. Our Student Senate met last week, and our high schools have been busy rekindling school spirit amongst their peers through their hard work in bringing back special events to their respective schools and reestablishing what it truly means to be a school community. The week of Halloween was a busy week for each of our schools. All schools held Spirit Weeks where students dressed according to themes like Twin Day, Decades Day, and Costume Day. Some special events were also held on Halloween. St. Joe's had a pumpkin carving contest. St. Anne's hosted carnival games in their learning commons. Holy Names ran a door decorating contest, and Cardinal Carter had a virtual pep rally. On Remembrance Day, all schools hosted their own unique commemoration. Assumption's history students created a Remembrance Day video. Brennan held a special Remembrance Day service, and St. Anne students collected donations for the Salvation Army. Each high school has started to prepare for their grade 8 nights, which will be taking place over the next few months in an effort to welcome future students, help reduce stress of transition from elementary school to high school, and to ultimately encourage incoming grade 9s to choose the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board for their high school education. And that concludes the first half of our report. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Student Trustee Malat. Student Trustee Gina Tuma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have the rest of our student trustee report. In recognition of Diabetes Awareness Day, St. Anne's collected donations of $2 to allow students to dress down in full blue attire. All the proceeds were given to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Encouraged to bring in any loose change they have, Assumption has spent the past 6 weeks focusing on their mission collections. So far, the school has collected a total of $4,000. A large fraction of the donations collected will be set aside to purchase gifts for their annual Christmas baskets, where they purchase gifts for those unable to in the community. As well, donations have been made to various causes, such as breast cancer awareness and into a mission in Peru. Brennan students are now greeted with kind messages as they begin their school day, thanks to their student council, who created posters with kind messages placed at the front of the school to add kindness to the school atmosphere. Continuing with the same theme, the school is introducing Friendship Fridays. This allows students to submit the names of their peers who are thought to be good friends. And finally, to support Anti-Bullying Week, Catholic Central created an anti-bullying awareness video. The video informed the students about bullying, discussed its various forms, and how to stand up to it. Just yesterday, the school kicked off their Socks for SAC and toy drive. For the rest of November and continuing into December, students are encouraged to bring in socks and toys that will be donated to children in need within the community. And that concludes our student trustee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Trustee Tuma. To both you, Gina, and Jada, thank you once again for bringing us up to date on what's happening at the student level within the various high schools. Thank you. There are no pending items, so the next future board meeting will be the organizational meeting, which is next Tuesday, November the 30th. There's no need to adjourn in camera, and so I'll call on Father Larry if you could close the meeting with a prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Valentinus. The tragic death of those 2 students has been mentioned numerous times, so we'll remember them in our prayers. The grieving families and the grieving communities around. As tragic as it is, I'm sure we all realize that it's a powerful teaching moment. Also, we lost a wonderful priest through a tragic accident last Monday, a week ago. And Father Matt was only 51 years old. And again, it was a sudden head-on collision that took his life. And then Wisconsin. Unbelievable. Santa Claus parade. So as the cold and dark days of winter come upon us, we remember those who have passed through the doorway of death. Each of us will face our own death one day. As people of faith, however, we believe that death is not the end, but the beginning of a new life. Jesus, by your resurrection, you have conquered death. May the souls of those whose passing we mourn at this time rejoice in the glory of everlasting life. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Father Larry. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Good night, everyone.